is a mother of three from Wales in the UK. She's also a Arcturian contactee as well as a Reiki master. She's wrote a book called Universal Angel Star, chronicling her experiences. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. This is Rocken Larry Locken with Pleiadian Express Productions. And I'm here today with my guest, Rachel Moore, like I had mentioned before, from Wales. And Rachel, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you, Larry.
Well, it's good to have you here. I know that we had been trying to set up this interview for some time now, and it's finally good to have you on. And I just, thought we would go into your story a little bit and some of your experiences with your guides, your orbs, what led up to your contact, what led up to you getting the impression that you're from Arcturus, as well as making contact with the Arcturians. So why don't we start off a bit? I know that you had mentioned in the pre-interview that in 2004 you had your awakening. What did
Yeah.
that first entail in 2004 when you initially had that awakening? What happened, if you could, describe
Well,
for the audience?
yeah. I'd split up from my middle son's dad at the time, and I started to see orbs. And I actually thought I was going mad because I thought, well, what are they? So I went and seen a clairvoyant lady. It was at the time that I used to go and see. And she gave me some angel cards because she used to do tarot cards, and said, oh, you'll use these. And I thought, well, don't be so silly, sort of thing. So I've never really believed in nothing up till then. So then I was seeing these orbs all the time, and they were, just like bubbles, really. And one of them was like the infinity sign, like the figure of 8 on the side. And the very first book I bought was Ask Your Angels, and I saw the picture that was in there was the orb that I was seeing, which really freaked me out. And then I, come to an understanding then that they were angels. So that was really my first awakening, and I started to connect with the angels a lot more, and Archangel Michael in particular. Then I went to spiritual development classes, where I met my first spirit guide, who was an Indian at the time. And really, it sort of all developed from there, but I didn't have no ET links until the encounter in 2008.
And set the scene for us, if you would, how that came about in 2008 when that initial contact happened. If you can just kind of set the scene a little bit and
Yeah.
how it played out.
It was quite bizarre because I was working, I was doing angel card readings and that at the time, just as like a hobby, really, because I worked in the community as a care worker. And we moved to a new area at the time, so I went to apply for a job as a care worker, and the lady on the induction course mentioned a lady that was doing used to do circles and development classes and things. So I met up with her. And when we met, it was just really bizarre. It was like I'd known her my whole life, and she was going through a few things at the time, and I went to her house, and my guide that I was working with at the time mentioned that it was a portal, and it was a really big house, and there was like a really big cellar there. And when I looked in this cellar there, it was just like lots of different, like a portal, lots of different energies all in that space. And then I just got this message come through to me from Commander Ashton that I'd never even heard of, back then, on about 2012 and the ascension of the planet, and going into the golden age and everything. And there was only a slither of light, on the earth at that time, and there was like a spiritual war going on basically between, with the lower energies on the planet, because they were contaminating so many of the ley lines, etc. And a new grid had to be laid and activated for the planet to ascend and to bring back that consciousness of the golden age of Atlantis. And I mean, obviously, it was just all so bizarre, and then the instructions the mission that I fulfilled over the 3 days just started to come through.
Did you receive a telepathic kind of communication from him saying
Yeah,
that his
yeah,
commander
it
Ashtar,
just,
and
yeah,
just to be clear, you had never heard of the Ashtar command before.
no, no,
You had
no,
never heard of
no,
it.
not at all, no.
Okay.
And you know, it was just the feeling of it all was just, it was just so powerful. I just thought, because I was, you know, obviously spiritually connected then, but not to the light beings or anything like that. And they were, you know, saying that, you know, we need to come in and to help, and this mission that you'll do will help to activate the 13th skull generator and various things. And we had to start with the basics of finding the compass points of the planet based on the various Earth incarnation eras. So we had to go right back to the Greek gods. So we had, like, you know, Zeus and Neptune, and oh God, I've got a mental block now. Zeus, Neptune. Oh, and
Exactly.
the top one, sorry, yeah, well, that was named as Cronus at the time, which was of the sky, and I'd never heard of Cronus before the god, but obviously that all then connected in with Lord Sananda, who was the director, which was the light being that was sat at the top of this like this table, and to start with, that we had to follow this this mission thing to bring Hades back in with the brothers to activate each of the north, south, east, and west elements, because obviously he'd gone over in Atlantis over with the lower energies, so we had to, you know, do this meditation thing to bring him back, which was like really, really bizarre. And like I say, it sounds far out just talking about it, you know, and then it just really developed from there. And I can remember when I was doing these things, and I would say to you know, to Commander Ashtar, and he was like being directed by that being of light, which is all I knew of at the time. I just knew that the main director was this light. I didn't even connect it with a light being or anything like that. And you know, it was sort of, oh no, we've still got to do this, and we've still got to do that, and so it was just then.
Okay, this third, but I don't mean to interrupt you, but the 13 crystal skull generator. Can you talk a little bit about that before we go any further and describe exactly what that is, what you're referring to when you talk about the 13th crystal skull generator?
There's obviously crystal skulls, as we know, all over the planet, and some have been found and are used. They say they're used to bring through codes and various communication. A lot of it connected with Atlantis, which is obviously what was needed for the ascension. But the 13th skull generator was the main activation point in the center of the planet that had to be ignited and raised to activate the new grid that was being laid for the planet to ascend in 2012. So each of the part of the missions that I was doing was connecting with, you know, connecting with the ley lines, and each time the 13th skull generator was raising up, so and it was being activated, and that is what the 13th skull generator is. It's not a physical form. A lot of scientists and things which I've seen on posts and that seem to think that they're going to find this skull, but it's actually, you know, on a consciousness level that has been brought forth in 2012 for humanity to use. You know, each individual brings forth the codes on their own journey, in which then we promote that to help others, and also with the, you know, with the ascension of the planet still, as the grids, you know, the ley lines have been activated, but that main center point of the inner earth, you know, because at that time the outer earth was, you know, which it still is now in a way, the outer earth is going through a lot of destruction. So that's why a lot of people were finding it hard to ground, because there was no ground to ground on. So that's why we go to into the inner earth, where the main activation point is as each ley line is, is being activated. But that had to be, that 13th skull had to be activated for 2012 for the ascension of the planet, to bring forth that new consciousness for us all to use.
And this 13th skull is not, that's interesting what you said, that it's not, they keep looking for this is not a physical item, is it? This is a conscious.
No. And that's consciousness that part of our job is to bring through as humans.
Right.
They don't find a physical form, or they don't see something with their human eyes, it's not real, it's automatically eliminated. So obviously with that consciousness that's coming in, on the 4D 5D level, is that we don't see things, but it's there, and that this, and it's energy. Everything is about energy and vibrations, and the frequencies of the planet. And more than anything, it's all based on thoughts, like a big transmitter, and the more we live in the now and we have positive thoughts, that helps towards the consciousness of the planet. And I mean, obviously at the time, even now, it just seems like it was a dream. But I think because I had the picture at the end of that mission, which I've still got now, which actually has got that 13th skull generator on, with the spaceship above it, that again clarified to me that everything that was going on was real. And
you mentioned in your book the you mentioned the 4 gigantic ships in the sky that were all ruled by the Intergalactic Light Force. Can you talk about that a little bit? Each having its own energy and representing even a different era on Earth as far as light, what light being lived in. That's fascinating.
Well, in 2008, you can imagine that the planet on an energy level was dark. That there was no light. It was completely unbalanced. So the universal energies from whatever star system you're in, whatever, they all combined to bring forth this new energy that needed the planet to ascend. So Commander Ashtar was actually directing the 4 ships. And on each ship was an era from each incarnation on Earth. So you can there was the power within each era that was projected onto Earth at that time. Well, each of those eras were needed to combine in also with the universal energies to bring, that was obviously that vibration combined would help with the planet's ascension. So there was there was the gods, like I said, which goes back to the Atlantis, which was so-called the first human incarnation on Earth. And there was the Indians, the native, like the Indians. There were there were Vikings, the witchcraft, shamans, every
Egyptians, pharaohs.
I was just going to say there was pharaohs on there. It was just bizarre. The pharaohs, actually, they were like really, this even sounds really mad, but I was actually at a carnival the day before the encounter started, and there was a carnival float. This isn't in my book actually, but there was a carnival float there, and there was 4 big Indian heads on this carnival float. And as I looked at it, it was like these Indian heads turned and they looked at me. I will never forget it. And I actually said to my ex-partner now, but at the time I said, "Did you just see those Indians' heads turn then?" And he said, "It was just stupid, what you're talking about," sort of thing. And that was when I was realised that what I was with my eyes wasn't what everybody else was seeing with theirs. Obviously, it was going into a different dimension. Which was darkness. Everything around that reality that we thought we were seeing, stepping outside the box, so to speak. It was just, it was like really quite bad. And And that's and all those ships. There was four, like I said, there was four ships, and they all combined. And I actually feel that those four ships could well be there again now. You know, I think that they will always be there. And you know, when that energy, you know, is needed. But the difference now, rather than 2008, is people are now seeing the ships, and that this needs to be.
Exactly.
You know, the governments and all these lower energies. I believe, I mean, obviously I'm a human body, but I'm a disguise. I know I'm not human. I'm an alien. My soul is an alien. And so, but I work for the, you know, obviously I work for Arcturus, but they're obviously again humans on Earth that are also disguised as lower energies. You know, these attackers, so to speak, and
Yeah.
they're trying their best to destroy the planet, but it's not going to happen. You know, but obviously our job on the planet as humans is to raise our vibration, keep connected in with our source, and do all we can to send, you know, love, to send light, to, you know, to be live in truth, to be in the now, to also contribute to that, you know, to that, the areas that are needing that support. And each individual, you know, you sort of think sometimes, well, how can I do that sort of thing? I'm only little old me. But when everybody does that combined around the world, the impact is really powerful, and that's where we're channeling that from the ships surrounding the Earth, you know. And I think when we're getting the sightings of them and etc., that again is giving us you know, we're getting the,
and we're raising the vibration.
Yeah.
And it's helping us to raise the vibration big time. Exactly. And I know what you mean about 2008. That was like the peak of the real dark period that we'd been in since the beginning of the century. And I know especially here in America with 9/11 and then everybody in denial. I think I was the only one that called bullshit on it the day that it happened. And it just 2008 was kind of like the last of it. It was really, and then things started to get a little bit better, but people have awakened in mass, and it's really, like you said, I'm just little old me, but when we all put our consciousness together and believe what we can do and trust in ourselves and in our guides, it's just incredible where we're going with this.
Yeah, and I did see a post actually earlier today, so on the Pleiadian site, and it was saying that especially this last couple of months, so many of us are being united, which is really nice. And I feel that again is happening for a reason, because all of us, you know, working together and doing meditations together around the world and connecting in, it will make a difference, and that's what we're needed to do. And like I say, we don't need to know the outcome because we live in the now, and we trust that all is well, and we do what we can in the moment, and knowing that we're doing that each day, we're you know, fulfilling our mission.
And that makes the outcome okay. We are in control of that outcome, if there is such a thing, by doing those things every now moment. We're creating the history. We're writing these events, you know, because we're getting together and we're choosing to go that route.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, you know, on an individual level as well, obviously we get sent various people I get people sent to me. I don't really have much time to advertise my work because of the children and everything else, so I'm very lucky, and I've got such trust in what I do and with my guide. You know, the people that I get sent are going through awakenings and various things, and they're waking up from their soul sleep, because again, it's all based on our own life experiences, and we need to heal from the earth incarnations first, before the soul exchange can happen, and then in which case we haven't got all that heaviness and all that upset from all the previous incarnations where we failed our lessons before a soul exchange. We've understood this incarnation and realized what we you know, connected with our higher self, understand why we've gone through what we've gone through, and then we then, you know, raise the vibrations of others, help them to heal, in which, you know, it's like a ripple on the water, and it you know, it just it keeps going on and on.
Right.
and that's what we needed to break the generation patterns as well in there.
Exactly, because it's not even just this incarnation. We're still rocking and reeling from failing our lesson in Atlantis, from blowing that and having the whole planet go down, and the cataclysm that was Atlantis and Lemuria. I mean, most people are still rocking and reeling from that, and yeah, it takes our beings journey to get out of this. No, it's okay. I was just making the point that I agree with you. It's
I think
yeah,
though,
we're here for a
that,
reason.
a lot of that consciousness of Atlantis was released in 2008, because that was when that old grid on the planet, you know, it's gone. It's not there no more. We're now on the new grid. So and that is now going right back again. We've gone in one big circle, and now we are now on the Atlantis era again. We're starting that all over again, but obviously on a better frequency, a better level. So I think, you know, a lot of people that are still, you know, feeling guilt from that, they don't really need to, because a lot of that was released with when I say the spiritual war, but between the energies in 2008. And as we know, that the planet ascended, the grid was ignited, and we're carrying on with that work now. And that's what we need to focus on and bring forth for the future generations, so they won't encounter the incarnations previously like we've had to do. And hopefully, I think people are learning their lessons a lot quicker now than what we did sort of 10 years ago, where things are always going to happen to us throughout our lives. We're always going to get attacked in one way or another, but whereas before we would let it affect us, we don't no more. Which again, that is a big step, isn't it? I feel within
I do too.
Working in the light.
And you know, Rachel, we always talk about, like on the show that I'm on N5D and some of my other shows, we talk about Atlantis, and like we talk about, okay, was Atlantis our future? Was it our past? I happen to think it was both, and you just hit on something about we're on that timeline before, but we're on a different kind of a timeline.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of coming together, and it's like you could look at it like, okay, it was our past, but you could also look like it like we've come back to get it right this time as well. Yeah, so either way, we're just in that now moment.
Yeah, and that was the consciousness, that energy was what was raised. That Atlantis vibration is what was raised again. You know, the light, we got it back. You know, yeah, the darkness, whatever, took it over originally, but we got it back in 2008. We eliminated the lower energies, that we got balance back in the planet. And that vibration was brought back in 2008, and it's been here ever since. And obviously, but people, as they're awakening all the time, are connecting in with it in whatever stage they are on their journey. That's why when we go through a soul exchange, we very much live in the now. We don't know one day to the next what's going to be happening, what we're going to be doing, because we're not impacted with that consciousness in our soul, because we don't need it. Because the frequency of the planet is changing daily, so we need to be just, you know, in the now, on that frequency for that particular day. When we wake up in the morning again, we then step into that new frequency and do whatever work we're meant to do. And then along the way, when we get, you know, each individual receives their downloads, or they receive their codes for what they need to be doing next on their mission, that's how I work anyway, or that's how my guide works with me. You know, I mean, everybody works different, don't they?
Well, they do, but it's a common theme like that. I think we're all living in the now moment right now with our guides. We're kind of living in that now moment. Day to day, we're creating our realities more and more. We're becoming more telepathic with each other. And I really think you hit on something too with 2008, because that's also when the healing, a lot of people don't realize this. They think, oh, 2008, but the healing really started then too. This is when the healing the grid and the healing really started at that point. And we're living more and more in the now moment. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's like, you've probably been completely in it for a while, but I know just recently, like with me, I'm more in it now. Yes, I know time is speeding up. If you want to consider time, time is an illusion, but it's slowing down in a way too, because we're strictly in that now moment now, you know.
I think you know, with the time, with the, like, say, yeah, time is an illusion, and if our heads are racing all the time, then we find the time's going fast. But if we're grounded and we be in our own reality, the time is as it should be, and it doesn't feel like it's. I know, yeah, we feel the months and everything. Yeah, they fly back. They do fly past quickly.
Yes.
But with our own existence and our own life, earth and spiritual, you know, if we're balanced and we know, and we you know, we know what we're doing, then that time, you know, does feel a lot slower. We you know, and if we're constantly thinking, or, you know, not looking after ourselves, etc., that's when our, you know, we start to race, and then that's when we feel that time's, you know, it's going too fast, sort of thing. But
Yeah, we get into that future tripping game that's an illusion, and
that's it.
that makes me feel really good what you just said, because I'm starting to feel like things are really, after speeding up, months flying by. Yes, they fly by on one hand, but on the other hand, I feel grounded, like, okay, I'm just living in the now moment. And that doesn't mean being irresponsible. That's not what we're saying, but it's living in the now moment and doing what you need to do in that moment, because that's all there is now. They're really, like you said, time being all we have is right now. That's it.
This is it. I mean, in a lot of, like I was saying, I mean, I had no choice really. I had to live in the now from 2008 after the encounter, because, which is why I hit a lot on the mental health bracket, because obviously what happened to me, you know, I had to go through the mental health systems. I was told that I was psychotic, this, that, and the other. But, you know, if I allowed my consciousness to stay where it was, I would have just, you know, I would have just been in the right heap. So I had to live in the now and retrain. It's all about retraining our consciousness. And when those thoughts come in, that we don't allow it anymore. And we always just say to ourselves, you know, at that time, what was happening to me. I know I was in control of the mission, but on another hand, I wasn't in control, so I didn't really understand what was going on some of the times, you know. And that's like with our life circumstances. We go through various things, and it upsets us, and we keep, you know, blaming ourselves, going on guilt trips. But I learned to say to myself, you know, at that time, I dealt with it the best way I could, and that's all that matters. And then you leave it there, and you don't let it come back into your consciousness. And as we do that, you know, daily, those cells will eventually die off, and then that's when we will receive new downloads, as we're then raising our vibration, and, you know, understanding things on a different level, as it's all part of helping others as well, you know. So that living in the now, I've done that ever since 2008, and this is with a lot of poor people that are in psychiatric conditions that maybe are seeing, you know, I mean, I saw faces in pictures, I saw dark faces everywhere. Yes. But I mean, if their aura, if they're not protecting their aura, and they're in a low place, well, that's how the lower energies feed on our lower emotions, so they will be, you know, encountering attacks. So, you know, then they're not, I don't feel that they're getting the help that they need. And when they, you know,
they're just start to Archon feeding machines, and they're not getting their help, and it's just really crazy. And if they don't stay grounded, which reminds me, going back to what you were talking about Ashtar and the intergalactic light being, talk a little bit about what your experience with that was, and who you found out later on that was, and the images that you had seen before, and how it just kind of came together for you.
Yeah, well, Commander Ashtar would sort of, like, as a human form. I mean, he actually did project himself as a you know, human form on a connection with me, whereas Lord Sananda didn't. That was just complete energy. But I suppose I just knew from the first day of the mission. I presume my guide was Commander Ashtar. I just knew that this being of light was there, that was directing it all. And after the encounter, they, you know, they sort of went, if you know what I mean, because I went into a shut-off period, because I, you know,
Right.
after all, I thought, oh my God, what's happened when I come back into my body, and because my soul had been exchanged, I was like emotionless for like a year. I had no emotions. It was a really bizarre experience, and it's like you don't feel no love within you, even though you're all right. But that's obviously because I was an empty vessel, and this, you know, the light being that had come into me, or that emptiness while the soul was going through the exchange, I had no emotions in me, and I was just sort of, well, I was just breathing, really, I suppose, which again a lot of people you know, have encountered as well. But I know that, like I said, I know Commander Ashtar's, you know, was with me. But then once my connection became stronger with Lord Sananda, on that, like I said to you previously about the Jesus thing,
Right.
Jesus, I had a sort of connection with him for quite a while, but I couldn't really connect with that energy because I didn't really do religion, and I didn't believe in the Bible and various things like this. Just based on my own experience, I just see God as a gift of the divine, which is an energy in the planet for us all to call upon, and in the universe. But then when I realised that that was in 2010. I read a book, and it said something about spiritual crucifixion, which I really connected with, to do with the last part of the mission, when I was walking up that big hill, and it felt like I had like a cross on my back. Sounds far out, but then I later discovered that's connected with the Christ consciousness. But again, that is to do with the light beings, not as Jesus is maybe projected on earth.
Right.
So when I realised that Jesus was an archetype of Lord Sananda, it's just like a light bulb moment within you. It's like you just know. It's that knowing within you. And I thought, oh, that was the light being that was at the top of the table. That was the one that was directing the whole mission. And then you just get that connection stronger. And then so since 2010, I wasn't really fully grounded in my body until then. And I went to Avebury actually and done some various meditations and things. I'm really grounded back into the ley lines there on a physical level, which really helped me. And ever since then, I you know, I know Lord Sananda is my guide, and like I say, with the star, that gave me the I did a meditation though back in 2010 within some crystal grids, and I was shown this like orange planet, and it was like the sun, and it had like these protection barriers all the way around it. So even though I was sort of in a meditation state, and I was in a trance sort of thing, and I was relaying what this energy was saying to me, I wasn't actually allowed onto the actual planet, so to speak, you know, or the star. Well, I can't help but to say it's a planet though as well. But I knew that was my home. I just knew that was my home, and I was so upset. And I said to them, you know, why have you left me on my own for 2 years? I've had nobody to talk to. I went through that encounter, and they said, because that's what's made you who you are. And all those, you know, that when I felt so alone, the only connection I had was my guide and that energy. And that's why I say people are lucky now to have the groups and the sites and people that they can connect and talk to, because that's something that I never had. And that's another part where I feel that I would always be there for somebody. I would never want anyone to feel that they're alone, because I know what that's like. And to just have somebody to talk to that understands you, again, that is just something that people need when they're waking up from their soul sleep, and they're getting the awakenings from the light beings. So
Exactly. That's why
yeah.
these groups are so great, and when you know, we have this connection with each other. Now, getting back to that though, are you talking about the Arcturians? Because I'm wanting to tie in here too. This planet, or this whatever it was, this mothership planet star system that you were seeing with this orange glow, that you were not let on exactly. Do you think that was that was the Arcturians? Do you think that was
Oh,
Arcturus you were
definitely. Oh, I
seeing?
definitely know it was, and it was in and at that time when I connected with it, it was way out of the solar system. It wasn't. Do you know what I mean? It was like secret. It was really
Yeah, you
weird.
sound almost like you're talking about Nibiru in a way, and this thing that they call Nibiru. And I'm wondering, this all ties in, and yeah, I'm just, these things are going through my head right now, and
Yeah,
it's
because
really resonating.
I'm learning all the time, and I don't do research. I never have done. I've just worked from within, which I suppose is good in some ways. But I feel sometimes if people read too many textbooks, they get confused, and they then live other people's journeys, and they forget about their own, about finding their own reality. So that's the way that I've always been. So I sort of get little bits of my puzzle along the way.
Right.
But I said to my God, why have you left me alone? And I realized then that I was a star. I was a star before my first incarnation on Atlantis, and that is why it's taken me so long, if you like, to adjust into a human body, up into the soul exchange. It was all quite weird. And then when I saw that when I split with my partner, December just gone, which was a really quite tough time for me, and I was in the process of writing the book then. The star was up in the sky every night, and every time I looked at it, it was changing, it was flashing, and I just knew that was well, I say my ship. When I say Universal Angel Star, that is a ship. That was the name that I was given because I work for the universe, like an angel on earth, so to speak, and we must shine like the stars and shine our light and love on all. So that Universal Angel Star is where Commander Ashtar is on. That is not, that isn't at Arcturus. It's in the universe. That's what's surrounding the Earth. So when I saw that star, that was also projecting the light. I knew that was the light of my ship, or not my ship, but the ship that I channel from as well with Commander Ashtar. And the green orb that was going around the star, when I would put because I get lots of quite bizarre things on my phone, which I see a lot of people do. The green orb represented the heart
Yes.
chakra and the unconditional love for the planet and for ourselves, which again was the bottom line, the bottom code of the whole mission, bringing that unconditional love onto planet Earth and for humanity, which still is now and always will be the code for our future generations. So that's the only way I can explain it, really. And then when I saw the star on your wall, and I thought, that looks like my star. That's the one that I see. Because again, I don't really look into things much. And then when I just typed in, along in my job, I've always put in spiritual meaning of whatever. And then when I saw like Lord Sananda and loads of different things tied in, I thought, well, there you are. That's because when you added me to the Pleiadian sites, do you know what I mean? I love it all, don't get me wrong. I know we're all connected to different star systems, but I couldn't relate to some of the stars and things. Do you know what I mean? But the minute I
Yes,
saw,
I do.
you know what I mean? I
Yes.
know we're all the
Yeah.
same, and I know we're all special, we're all unique, and we've all got a mission, and we all work together, we all love each other. But when I saw Arcturus, when you just get that knowing, I know that's my star, that's my home.
Exactly the same thing I felt
Yeah,
when I see the Pleiades. We both, yeah, I feel that way about the Pleiades. You feel that way about Arcturus.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yes.
when it was like different things, like, I mean, basic terminology, that it was orange and all these things, I thought, well, that came to me like 2010, and all these different little codes, again, that I had been given on the journey all came into place. And it's such a nice feeling when you do get given a download, because again, it's just so comforting, because it's giving you more recognition of the soul that's within you and our job, and it just makes
Mhm.
it all the more real to me, really.
That's what you call a real aha moment right there when those happen.
Mm. Yeah, it's just such a buzz. And it's really weird because I'm actually going to have a tattoo done. I've seen a tattoo and when I put in spiritual meaning of Arcturus, this picture came up, and it actually had like compass points on it, had 3 crystal skulls on it, had the planet going around. and I thought, oh my God, that represents all of the mission as well, with to do with the compass points and the elements around the grid, and as well as the skull activator. But each, I know it sounds going off the track a bit, but I think this happens to a lot of people as well. Each tattoo that I had has represented an awakening in my life. And that is like the final one now, which represents the being that is, like, the last one I had was in 2004, which was the infinity sign, you know, which was the angels. And the one before that was a butterfly, which was when I left my oldest son's father and went into a refuge. That was an abusive time, but the butterfly signified freedom, and you know, so it's all quite, everything's really symbolic, which makes it more personal for us on our journey, in which we can relate to others, where they can really connect in with us and know that it is being part of our reality, and we're constantly being downloaded all the time, as long as we're on the planet. So it is a magical experience.
And it's kind of symbolic, like you said, this last tattoo that you're going to get. I mean, you know innately, right, that that's a symbol for, that's the closure of it, right?
And I just feel that needs to be on my, I know it sounds weird, but that just needs to be on my physical body. That's giving me, I don't know, I just feel comfort from that, and that's what
I could totally understand. Yeah, I totally understand. It works
weird,
for you, and works for you, and
but yeah, I just,
no, it's completely related.
When you get a realization like that, it's so special, you know. And yeah, you could get a picture of it or whatever, but because it was so symbolic to me, and represents everything to me that has gone on since 2008, especially again, like I say, with the crystal skulls, and you know, and I mean, my guide will even go, so well, you have that color, and you have this color, and that's, I mean, it's just so direct, the messages for me, and they're, like I say, very basic. I work on very basic terminology, because that's how we understand. That's, you know, we don't need lots of words.
We don't. It's called the KISS method here in America. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. But exactly, keep it simple. And think about it. On their level up there, everything is just pure consciousness and all-knowing. So it really is that simple, and that's what we're trying to get back to, is being beings like we were and like we are.
Yeah, just basic. And we're all, like I say, when we go, you know, through or wake up from a soul sleep, we you know, we're going through a form of a rebirth, we're going through a transition. So we do feel vulnerable, we feel like children all over again. It's a case of learning this new way of living, you know, all over again. So we need to understand and be able to project our work like we would to a child. So they would, you know, understand the learnings of reality, and to, you know, and breaking through the illusion that's been created really on the earth.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I want to get into definitely your Reiki work here in just a bit, but what I really wanted to talk about was what we talked about in the pre-show. When you were writing your book, you'd had all these ideas in your head, you know, for 6 years, and you finally got the chance at one point to write it, and you were talking about how you just went into consciousness mode with your guides, and you whipped that thing out in a week. And I've heard this story before. The great author of Chariots of the Gods, Eric von Däniken, talks about that when he's wrote his books, that he just goes into that consciousness mode. And talk about that a little bit, what that was like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've wanted to write the book since 2008, but then looking back on it now, I realise I've had to have various other awakenings along the way to understand it more as well, like with ley lines and various things that were all to do with the grids. But having all that in my head for that time was you know, it's hard, because it's just something that nobody, I felt, you know, you people ask you about it, and you can just give them, you know, a bit of this and a bit of that, but it don't really explain the whole story because it's so deep. But again, it's all about self-love. It's not, you know, it's we must find our own reality and love ourselves, and so, you know, we're deserving of love in all areas of our life, and obviously I must have been in denial, you know, with my ex-partner, thinking that everything was all right, and actually it wasn't. So I had to also leave that relationship, which obviously was quite hard to do. But well, no, it wasn't hard to do towards the end, actually, because I knew I had to break free. But that was when I, you know, that prevention was there from me writing the book within the relationship as well. So once I left, I knew that was the, you know, it was just total trust really in my guides, knowing that I'd be all right. You know, I had no money. I was just living the unknown really, and just totally working from within and totally working in the now. And they says, right, you know, now you're going to write your book. It's time for you to do the book now. And I thought, well, how am I going to do the book? I've got no money. I can't, you know, I'm not going to be able to publish it, sort of thing. And I actually got a loan from the bank to do the book, which that was all quite a bizarre circumstances as well. But just to write the book and to get everything out of my mind as I was writing it, that was just a relief in itself. And I would pick the children up from school, or I'd go a bit earlier and I'd sit in the car and I'd write a chapter in the car, or I'd go to bed a bit earlier, and it was just done within a week. And I always said I had to write that book for myself more than anything. So I've got a memory. Well, the memory's always in my consciousness, but I've got something that I can really, you know, hold. But also for my children to read when they get older, to get a bit of an understanding by why I'm like I am, and how it is important for them to find self-love. And I always said anybody reading the book that would find strength or inspiration, then that would also be, you know, a bonus for me. It was, you know, it was just something that I had to do, and it was such a relief to do it in a way. But then I think we can all write a book, you know. I mean, since that last chapter, since December, that's the start of another book, you know. It's continuous,
you keep going.
Yeah.
And that's how it goes. And I really applaud you, because it's like one thing, you know, all this in your consciousness and had all these memories and knew what you knew, but doing that book, you have something that your children can resonate with and figure you out a little better, and then other people can be reading this book. And you know, it really resonated with me, and I think that it's a common theme among us starseeds. You know, we were in these kind of relationship with these low vibing people that we just didn't vibe with, and then we had to get out of it. And then at the same time, we've got all these things going on in our mind, and we think nobody understands us in our family. But you've laid the foundation for a document that people will be reading it at one point and going, oh, okay, well, that's why Rachel was like that, that's why Mom was like that, or oh boy, I really resonate with that, you know. And I applaud you for doing a book. And yeah, I think everybody could do a book if they really.
I think as well, though, that
when the time is right.
With the relationships is actually, you know, it wasn't necessarily them. It was us, by not having love for ourselves. That's why we practiced those relationships. It's not until
that resonates with me.
Yeah, it's not until then we wake up and think, well, actually, you know, I deserve better than this. And when we start to then love ourselves, that's when we break free. And that is obviously our lesson, our soul lesson, which is we failed in every other incarnation to learn. And that's the best love of all. You know, it's taken me nearly 40 years, you know, to love myself, and I've never been happier, you know. And when we go
I agree.
That is an added bonus. That's not a need. It's not a need. We've got all the love within us. It's just nice to be able to share that with a like-minded soul that would be on the same vibration, you know, which is something we've settled less for in the past.
Exactly, and you hit it on the head. It wasn't necessarily their fault. It was really our faults, because we didn't love ourselves, and that really caused all that turmoil. And if we would have loved ourselves at that time, it would have worked out better. But then again, if we would have loved ourselves at that time, we wouldn't have been in relationships with those kind of people. So it's kind of like one of those things.
And I think, well, obviously the vibration we were at that time within that relationship was the same frequency as the person we were with. And it's only when we start to raise our vibration in self-love, that's when we attract that same vibration to our being. So in each of those relationships, whatever vibration we were at that time is what the opposite was on as well. you know, in one way or another. It was like opposites attract, and it's that sort of same frequency. So when we realize that twin flame is within us, and we give ourselves that love, then we're at inner peace, and we know that you don't need a man, or you don't need a woman, or whatever sexuality you are to find love in life.
Right.
It's all within us, and the same with the planet. It all, you know, we work on that same heartbeat of the planet, and that brings that comes into our being as well. So we then be at peace.
I think you just hit on something too about the twin flame, because see, I've been thinking about this twin flame thing a lot. I've done a couple shows on it. It's really, you know, my least favorite subject to talk about, because it just didn't enthuse me. Created that group, and I got to thinking, and it hit me, you know, our twin flame is really us.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really, it really is us, and it's about us
you know,
becoming whole.
Yeah, and I've only really realised that since December. You know, some people will sort of say, oh, I've known that all along, you know, and they're again, they can be in denial. But I'm very honest, and like I said, I'm learning all the time. And I realised in December, since December, it's the first time in my whole life that I've felt that I don't need to be with anybody, and I need to be on my own, and I need to, you know, do my work and be at peace. And you know, I mean, it's nice to have company
People that
with the
say
people.
that, people that say that, though, people that say that are in denial themselves, because somebody that truly was like that, who has known her all along, they wouldn't come out and say it. And December,
Yes.
hell, I've only known this since May or June. You know what I mean? That's when it hit me, about May or June. So you're ahead of the curve on me. And if I would challenge anybody that would say something like that back as a comment, like, well, I've always known that.
Yeah.
Well, I highly doubt it, because a true enlightened being, if there were one that did always know it, they wouldn't come out and probably say it quite like that. So
No,
I don't
no,
know.
no, no. But then you do get people that you know, like you said, they are in denial, and they'll use others' experiences to try to make their own reality, when really it's not. They're still trying to find their own individual purpose as well. But no, but what, like you say, by recognizing that within us, I mean, that again, that's just like being given a gift again, you know. And you think, oh, I just can't believe, yeah, that person is within me. And when we start to love ourselves, and you know, give ourselves time as well as do our work, and try to balance it all with the children, which can be a bit of a job sometimes, finding that balance. But then, you know, we know it's because we've never done that before, because we may have thought that it was selfish to give ourselves time, or selfish to, you know, that was the sort of thing that I've always, or
Me too.
was like, oh, I don't like to say that, sounds like I'm being big-headed. You know, that's what you feel.
Yeah, and I
Not
paid the
giving-
price for it too. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And I paid the price for feeling that way and being that way to myself. And who knew all along the twin flame was in the mirror, you know?
that's it. Yeah, yeah. And that we must nurture that, and we must nurture our you know, our physical bodies, and look after ourselves. And because that's something else I think we neglect, because I know I certainly have. Because when you know, you sort of you become unbalanced, you don't eat properly, you don't sleep properly, you know, all these things, and they
Yes.
catch up with you, and then you get ill, or you get you know, really tired. And then again, that's when we can sit and reflect and regain our balance again, and we try not to let that happen again, sort of thing. So it is hard. It can be hard at times, but you know, at least.
It's getting easier.
Pardon?
I said it's getting easier, but you talk about hard. It is hard. It's really difficult,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
nice to finally start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
Yeah, oh, definitely, definitely. And again, I suppose sometimes when we say it gets hard, that's only if we, you know, allow our consciousness again to take us back to those reasonings. If we just known. I mean, I constantly say to myself, all is well, or if there's an issue going on in my life, I surrender that. I learned to do that, which is a massive help. If I can't seem to find some solution in my earth mind, then I just surrender that to my guides, and I say, look, I'm surrendering all this to you. I know the outcome will be for the highest good of all, and then that automatically takes all the stress away as well. So that's another way I've sort of learned to handle things on different levels as well.
But don't you think loving yourself is this learning curve too? Like, it's one thing, like I've always heard, you know, you need to love yourself, right? And I knew that. Look, it's one thing to know it, but it's a
Yeah,
whole nother thing to finally get full of that feeling of actually realizing that you can let yourself love yourself. Okay, like, I mean, even before my awakening, I mean, I knew that, yeah, I should love myself, but I didn't, and I didn't know how. But then as you start to awaken more and
yeah,
realize how great you are actually without ego, you just really
yeah.
become full of that feeling too, and
I
it's
think as
being
well,
full
a
of
lot
that
of,
within.
yeah, a lot of that does, again, it stems right the way back to childhood, where generally people that have had trouble, like us loving ourselves, we may have had little recognition as children, that there may be imbalanced, different imbalances in our childhood, which again is sort of been like a vicious circle throughout our lives, where we've been in relationships where we've not been given recognition, even though again we're on that same frequency. When that's been with you your whole life, it is, to just shift it overnight. Well, it don't happen overnight, does it? We're constantly
No, no.
yeah, I mean, it's really weird. It's like when you've got a light being soul in you, it's like some of the human our human existences before are just deleted. It's like a computer system, you just forget. And sometimes I go through the day and think, right, I must do this, and I must then do this, and I must do that.
Mhm.
And it sounds so basic and stupid, but I feel that I've got to do that, because you sometimes you just you lose track a little bit, and
You
you
do.
yeah, and I mean, I've got to write things down as I would just forget. But I think if when we live in the now so much like we do, that's how we do forget, because we don't, each second passes and we just concentrate on where we are at that moment. That's the only way I sort of feel I can explain. Um,
No,
with
you're talking about staying grounded too, because you also still have 3D things to take care of. So it's important that you keep those other things in mind and keep those tasks in mind. And you mentioned also too, these shifts don't just occur overnight. It's kind of comical, and I'm not mocking anybody, but you see some of the people in the groups, they keep expecting this just big aha moment. Well, it's several little aha moments. It's not just
yeah,
something that just happens and you're there. You don't
yeah,
just go from doing this to telepathy completely. It's a phase. It's a thought. It's starting to have synchronistic thoughts. Then the tone pulses in the air. Then eventually to the level where it is telepathy completely. I'm sure at some point. But these things don't happen overnight, and there's not
uh,
just this big. People just want
and
this big
I mean,
one.
yeah, and people, and each
Yeah.
individual has in a way, has got to have that alone time to learn and connect with their inner self, and not necessarily bounce off everybody else. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way or anything, but do you know what I mean? If like, some people,
Yes.
you could go on the group and they're on there all the time, when really maybe they should be taking some time out and connecting really in with their own being, so they can find their reality as well. So when you take a bit of time out and you find your reality, when you come back again, you're in so much more control, because again, like, Facebook can be, it's good in some ways, don't get me wrong, for communication and things, but it can get really drawing, and you can get drawn into so many
Yes.
things, in which then, and some of it, lower vibration sometimes, and you just get really confused and lost again.
Yeah,
So
Larry Locken,
finding
you
that
heard wise.
balance, I mean, like I said, I used to have a group once, and I just couldn't do it. You know, it was just so much energy needed in that group. I just couldn't. It just made my whole life become so unbalanced. I was like neglecting. You know, it might sound silly, but you know, like neglecting housework, neglecting time with the
Yes.
children, things like that. And that's when we're not working in the light. You know, when we work in the light, we find that balance. We give people as much time as we can, when we can, and you know, because I can remember I remember getting something where we only have so much energy to give each day, and that energy should be used wisely, and given to those that, you know, are accepting of it, because some people, you know, they get stuck in that rutting away, and they become fearful, and maybe choose to stay in that 3D reality because of the fear of moving and stepping out on their own and not having that support around them. And I think, you know, we need to be on our own, and we need to find our own reality, as well as a support from others. I think that experience I went through on my own for those 2 years was something that I was to project on my mission to help others. It's like when I do my workshops, you know, those in between times between 1 and 2, they're to go away and use that information and make their own connections. So when they come back for the next one, they you know, that they're a step further. And that's how, you know, that's how I feel I've sort of had to work.
No, I agree with you. It's easy to get. I'm the biggest guilty person of getting stuck in that rut like that of being on Facebook and not taking the time out for me, and it's really taken its toll on my energies, especially the last couple of months. And I've just now got it in my mind. I know that we had a conversation when I had to reschedule our interview, and you really said something to me that hit me about taking time for myself. And at first I was like, God, I can't. I felt guilty, but then I felt your loving energy, and I was like, you know, yeah, I realized it was okay for me to start getting in that mode of doing that. And I think a lot of us are starting to do. Some of the people, my colleagues too, are starting to do that as well. You know what I mean? And I think it's really important, like you said, and you just really hit home for me on that.
Yeah. Or so, I mean, you know, I could sort of sense your energy from how I felt I mean, I only have one group. I mean, you've got lots and lots, and that energy, you know, from each. I mean, that's a lot of energy, you know, all on your shoulders, some in a way. And again, it's so important to detach from energy as well, because, you know, when we're in that space, we are working with people, and we do, you know, we're working in their space to help them. So that's something else I learned along the way. And after that conversation, no matter whether it's on the phone, whether it's on, you know, on the computer, you like to detach from that energy, which is something that I never used to do. Until one day when I really got tired, and I think I had about 20 like different attachments. I mean, not nasty ones, but the energy and the emotions of the person that I was working with, you know, and we need to, we step into that space to help them, but we also step back out again, and that's something that you know, that did affect my health, you know, and you know, when we work with energy all the time, we realize that we're all linked together, aren't we? So we need to detach from that as well, so that person can also work in their own space. And because again, that can happen, and they you know, our energy can sometimes stay with these people, so then we're in balance because we're not whole. I mean, I've had that happen to a couple of people recently, where that's a bit like a soul exchange, but not an accepting one, so to speak, because we don't realize it's happening sometimes, until, you know, until we get ill and think, oh, actually, you know, I need to get some energy back here, because that person that we may have helped, if they're on a I mean, I'm on about if they're on a really low vibration mind and they're going through a lot, I mean, they don't realize it, bless them, that they don't realize it, but obviously we know the energy that's working with them and making them feel on that low vibration. You know, that's what what will take ours as well. So detachment is really, really, like the etheric cords and that, is quite important, I think, in our work as well.
I think you hit on that too. It's like these people that we're dealing with, to bless them, we're not saying these are not negative people. It's just taking on all that energy is not good for us without detaching once in a while. I mean, the few people you run into that really are crappy type of people, I mean, you can just detach from them, get rid of them off Facebook or whatever, but it's the people that you've built these bonds with that you're trying to help, and they're trying to help you, and it's important for us all to detach once in a while. I get what you're saying. It's not even about anybody being negative or being, you know, a bad soul or anything like that.
Like
but
saying, sometimes it can even be, you know, it don't necessarily have to be just on Facebook. It can be friends around you. It can be family. It can be anybody in your energy space at this time. And you know, it might not necessarily have to be spoken through by words. You just pick up on their vibration or their emotions, and you know, because we're so open. You know, it can happen so easily. Again, with aura protection, again, I can't help but to keep going back to that. That's just so important as well with all of our work to, you know, to help protect our auras more when working with people as well. I mean, that's the first thing I always do with anybody before I even start, you know, because then we're both in the right energy space, and we're both working on, or you know, that person might not realize it who we're helping, but the minute we either mentally protect their aura, they could be somewhere around the world, but I will still put them in that energy space that I work from, knowing that while I'm talking to them, they are in that protected area. You know, then it's up to them whether they continue. I mean, I give them the information how I've always done my aura protection since 2008. I mean, whether they choose to continue that after the conversation, I mean, that's obviously their choice, but that in between time, it's good to have that person, you know, in a protected space, so they can hopefully you know, accept and listen to it a bit more to help them on their journey then.
And Rachel, how do you do this aura protection? This sounds great. How do you, is it something that you ask your guides for when you go into this? Is it a meditation?
It was something that that I had to do in 2008, and it's like a pyramid basically. I mean, I always call on the Intergalactic Light Force before I start asking them to come in to protect my aura. Then you just imagine like a big white triangle, basically, like a pyramid around your being. Well, up until 2012, that was enough. That was all we needed, was that one light of protection. But obviously, from 2012, with all the different shifts in the planet, it's, you know, it's caused a lot of upset in the energies and things. So we're more open to attack as more of us are evolving. That's just the way life is. It's no different whatever job you're in. You could be at risk of something. Yes. So we now bring the extra protection in. So on top of that white triangle, I put a rainbow light, and that rainbow light represents each chakra point. So we're then, when we're communicating with people, we're protected because we're working on an emotional level with them, or whatever chakra point we're working on. That's protecting us and them while we're doing that. Now, I worked very closely with Archangel Michael back in 2004, and you know, back then when I perceived angels, that was how I perceived him as a human looking, you know, being, but now I see him more as an ET link. But then I bring the blue light in then, and that's obviously giving us strength, it's giving us protection within our own being. But even after doing all that, if we've been under an attack, we've still got part of our aura, our energy missing. So I then bring in the purple light, which is represented as the violet flame, Saint Germain. I work a lot with the ascended masters, but again, I think it's all these names are all connected back to the same source in the universe. I can't help but to feel that. And then obviously what that light will do is that will replace, it will take away the negative energy that we may have attracted, and it will replace our aura again, so then we're fully balanced. So that's the first thing I do for for the aura. And then obviously we need to be grounded. We must be grounded on the planet, otherwise it's like we trip over our whole lives if we're not grounded. So I mean, we used to be able to just ground on the outer earth again, and that used to be enough. But with all the different ley line activations all the time and the different, you know, the movements, it's important to like ground into the inner earth as the final grounding. And also by grounding into the inner earth, you're grounding into that 13th skull generator. So you're bringing that consciousness into your own being, as well as, you know, when you do it, sending that love and light through the ley lines. So again, each day, I mean, I do this every day. I do it every night for my children, all the time. You know, we're working on many levels by doing that. And to do the grounding, I mean, a lot of people used to do it with roots and trees and various things. But when you imagine the earth and there's 2 silver hooks with your initials on, and you're reconnecting back to those hooks, they've been there since birth for you, but that's your grounding spot. So you allow 2 cords to descend from the center of each feet, 2 big cords, and you then hook. You ground into those 2 center points on the outer earth. You then descend those cords right down into the center point of the planet, where you'll see a crystal. There'd be like the crystal will be upon a white crystal grid, which is the crystalline grid, which is what the stars are made of, aren't they, and what our souls are made of as light beings. Well, and whether people have evolved or not, that's what their souls are made of, aren't they, the stars.
Yes.
So whatever color crystal will be there for you, again, will be what you need. That vibration is needed in your being at that time. So, you know, I mean, even with the children, they'll get a different vibration, a different crystal for whatever they're going through at that time, or what they might be feeling at that time. So maybe if they're feeling a bit unloved or something, there might be a green one there for them. If they're feeling you know, a bit oversensitive, there might be a yellow one there for them. If they need grounding, there'd be an orange one. You know what I mean? If each one represents, yes, chakra points. If we need to do like connect more on a spiritual level, there'd be a purple one there for us. So maybe that day we'll be due to have a download or a code sent to us from whatever's needed. So that's the way I've always done that, and you know, it's always worked for me. And if something works for me, I'll keep doing it. And that's what I've always projected to people in my workshops. Before you even start to do anything else, you need to recognize your own being, not necessarily just your physical one, your aura as well, and how important it is for us to protect that. You know, even though we can't see it, well, I know some people can see it, but on a general level we can't see it. Well, it's the same with my encounter. You know, you wouldn't normally see all those lower energies with your human eyes, but they were there. So that's why we need to protect ourselves, to keep us safe, and on an everyday level, not just necessarily a spiritual level. You know, because we're coming into contact with people all the time, aren't we, wherever we go. So we're always constantly going to attract energy, aren't we, to us, whether we're doing our work or not. So yeah, that's just the way that I've always done it, and advise people to do, to help them to feel like, you know, grounded and protected.
Fascinating. Wow, I think you answered my next question. But so do you teach this in your workshops that you do? Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Generally, if I'm just, I mean, I give that information out in everything I do. Whether it's an online reading, I'll send it by email. If it's a one-to-one reading, I go through the manual before we even do the reading, telling them again about the cause to detach and the situations, because generally somebody coming to see you will be on a low vibration at that time. Something in their life's upsetting them, so they're coming to see you to get help. Well, before they can even get that help, they need to raise their vibration first, and they need to know how to do that. So that the first step with that is for them to understand their aura, and that their aura's gone through some sort of attack based on that circumstances that they're going through at that time. So the minute they start to protect their aura and they go and they call in the light force that I work with, you know, they're automatically, when they leave me, if they continue doing that, they'll be in that zone, they'll be in that energy zone, that energy will be with them to help them and to give them strength. And so I always do that in my workshops for, you know, for people to help them to start to understand their journey, really.
So you don't have all this written down, do you, these steps? Because it sounds great.
I just put it on again tonight because I saw this wonderful post today about the Lion's Gate, which connected again with me with 2008, and I've put a link up to do a group meditation on the 8th of the 8th, at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night, wherever you are in the world, and for us to all unite. I've put it in the groups, and I've put on there, I've put like Universal Angel Star Ley Line activation, for people to go into space, into the pyramid, because that's all I've ever done, with a major, you know, when we get the major awakenings on the planet and we get different dates and things like the 11/11/11, I've done it then, and the 12/12. That's all I've ever done. I've just gone in my pyramid and stood there. I mean, obviously I see my guides when I'm in there, and when people are in that place, they feel safe, they feel protected. And I always said, if there's anything you need to download me or anything I need to know today, will you please tell me? And then if you're meant to get messages, activations, they'll come through for you. So I've put that link on tonight actually, and I've put that aura protection up again for people that haven't seen it. And if they go into that energy space well, as soon as possible if they need to, but on that day especially, you know, that they'll feel protected. And if they continue to do that, it's like anything. If we work for the universe, we don't work for the earth, we work for the universe. When you work for the universe, there's rules, there's terms and conditions like there are with earth, and those rules are, we must protect our aura, and we must ground ourselves, and also, you know, align our chakras as well when needed. But that, you know, that's sort of another thing again. But if you go into that,
I can't wait to take a look at this. I can't wait to take a look at this. I saw the post that you're talking about before we came on, and we were talking and getting ready to do this, so I can't wait to take a look at that. And I agree with what you're saying on the 8, you know, in these activation dates. But isn't it funny how some people will just look at these activation dates and they'll just think, oh, well, this is going to happen on this date, and they're not, but at the same time, they're not doing that work like you're talking about. They're not doing the meditation, they're not embracing it in the way they need to. I think they just look at some of these dates, some of these people that don't have a clue, and they think, well, something's just going to magically happen then. You know,
obviously we need to break out of, like I say, because we're in this zone now as we're talking, you know. But you need to. This is not our reality. Everything around us is an illusion. So we need to step out of this zone to connect with the universe, to connect with our guides, and by doing that, and by doing our protection, and just, you know, just being and stilling ourselves, we are, you know, we're going into that zone, and we're not in this reality. So that's where we can then receive what we need to receive. But if people are just sort of, you know, connecting in and not really understanding what they're doing, again, that can be quite dangerous, can't it? You know, because there's lots of different energies that are they're hoax ones, and they think, oh yeah, that's my guide, and actually, well, no, it's not. You know, have you been to this? And then it, you know, it's like anything. There's risks with any job we do. But like I say, when you choose to pursue your awakening and tune in with the universe, we must live with those basic rules for the rest of our lives. It comes part of our daily existence, like brushing our teeth, like, you know, getting dressed. We must do our aura. Otherwise, you know, we face the consequences of going through an attack, you know. So that's what I sort of always say.
Well said. And it is concerning. It's concerning because you will hear people, and this could just be my perception, they don't know all the facts, and they don't know the details that they need to do to protect their aura. And well, like for instance, somebody getting hung up on a term, okay, like Saint Germain, Metateron, those are all great energies, but some of these people wouldn't know if they were or not. They're hung up on a name or a term. Even
That's
like with the Ashtar command, they're hung up on a name, and they wouldn't even have idea. They wouldn't have an idea if it was Gandhi or Joseph Stalin. You know what I mean?
no,
They're
no,
not.
no.
They're hung up on a cool name. Yeah.
So, I mean, all those energies that I work with, I've had an awakening with each of them along, along my path. That's why I bring them forth in my work, because again, it's all about our personal experiences, and that's what
Right.
makes us real. And so that's why. It's so important again for people to follow their own path and get their own awakenings along that path. I know we help each other, of course we do, but you've got to have experienced these things on a personal level to be able to help another, and to do it in the right way as well. It's like Moses energy connected with me in 11/11/11, and also with a good friend of mine as well on the same day. It was quite bizarre, and that was a special moment again, because but even all these energies, all these names, that's just I cannot say just a human perception. It's just something's got to have a name. But I think I say the universe is like one big spider. There's one big body with lots of legs coming off it, and certain people, we're all on different legs, but at the end of the day, we're all on those legs projecting our work, doing what we're doing, but it still stems back. That energy still comes from that main body, which is the universe. It's the stars, the planets, and that's we just we bring these names in because it's what humans can understand. We need to talk to them on a level that they can understand. So by saying names, that they can relate to that then, can't they? And use that name to make it become their reality. But with the Moses energy, that energy comes in a lot with people with a lot of emotional attachments, and it's a very forceful energy in a way, and it's about, again, it's the truth. It's based on truth, which again is one of our codes in the star systems. If people, again, that's something else that's so hard for people to do, is live in truth, because it upsets a lot of people around them if they start to find their truth and speak their truth. But that's the best way to be, because people need that truth to wake up. I think when people are sort of pussyfooted around them and not frightened to give them the truth because they feel it might upset them, well, when they get upset, it makes them realize what they need to do, so that truth will bring them their reality. So that's what, living in truth. I mean, I can be quite blunt at times, but then people thank me for that, because they say, well, I needed to hear that. Nobody else would say that to me. You know what I mean? So truth is always so important as well. And with and I mean, Moses, when I do Reiki, Moses will come in, and if somebody's really tried hard to cut some emotional cords and they can't do it, they've just not had the strength, he will do that in the Reiki session for them. Then it's up to them then to keep their vibration high, again, by following the information, by doing the aura, so they don't let themselves fall back into that lower vibration. And then I work with Hilarion as well. He came to me in the encounter, or a lot to do with like past life attachments, again with aura work, and he was on the earth apparently in the 4th century, working on people's aura attachments, and he'll come in occasionally to do with past life issues and things people need to get a realization from in their past life that is again affecting them in this life. A lot of that can happen with people in the witchcraft era that were burnt or were staked. A lot of people I've seen have had like heart troubles, asthma, things, and Hilarion is coming before it and like taking the stakes out of their heart centers. And some people have actually felt it, that they felt that they went short of breath for a moment, and they felt that they could breathe again freely. And again, with that, it was where they were supposed to have, you know, been able to project their work, the magic within them, to help others. But obviously it was preventive, wasn't it? And bad things happened to them. Again, with the medieval times, a lot of people were executed, hung, and that can project through on our being in this life, which affects their communication chakra, which is preventing them from speaking their truth. So again, it's finding that all those little pieces of the puzzle, and then they realise that why they've not been able to speak their truth maybe in this incarnation is based on this life circumstances as well as others. And then when they release that and they start to find themselves and love themselves and speak their truth, and then they can evolve, and they've learned some of their main soul and life lessons, which again normally connects back through the generations as well. That it's like the end of the line, if you like, of the generation process now, because we're now bringing this new frequency in for our children, for our future generations. So we don't want them to have those attachments on them that we've had, you know. So that's the only way I can
right.
say.
And when you start speaking your truth like that, though, would you say it's really vital that you're grounded at that point too, to be effective when when you're speaking your truth, to try to show people, that it's important that you're also grounded from a perspective
and
point of
obviously
view.
when you're speaking that truth, again, it's that you're speaking that truth for the highest good of yourself as well as for the other person. You're not saying anything in a negative way or bringing. And I mean, people say speaking your truth is working with low vibrations. It's not negative energy at all. It's helping that person realize realize the situation they're in, because they're being walked over or whatever, because they don't love themselves and they're not speaking up for themselves. Again, you can have somebody that is too overactive with their communication chakra, so they're constantly getting in trouble because they're not holding back on what they're saying. They're not thinking before they speak, which is again on the opposite scale. So they need to find balance in learning, like you say, to ground themselves, to know what they're saying before they open the mouth. And as long as we know everything that we do, everything we say, everything I say to people in workshops, no matter how harsh it might say or sound, will always be for their highest good, because we know when we work, it's our guides. We're channeling that information for them. So it will always be to help them, never to bring more negativity into their lives than they're already experiencing as well.
It's not belittling, right? It's not belittling, and it's not you with an attitude, because you've still got some issues you're dealing with. So you're, exactly. It's the tone and the purpose. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, people find it so hard because they've lived their whole lives, and again that can stem back to childhood. It could be on an abuse scale where they as a child they could have been abused maybe, and they've always been told not to say nothing. Do you know what I mean? It could be like that, or it could be even on a level where they were ignored as a child, and whenever they went to speak, they were to shut up. Do you know what I mean? A lot of it will always generally go right back to their childhood, and that's where we always need to start with any form of of helping another is to take them right
Healing,
back.
yes.
Some people find that so hard, and because they've stored it away in their consciousness all these years, but then they also get an awakening and realize, oh God, yeah, that is why I've been like I am, but I forgot about it, and that became their reality up to whenever time they've woken up from their soul sleep and they've come to see people like us for help, you know. So it's not all about being direct in with the light beings and all about spiritual stuff. You know, there's so many, you know, that there's parts of the puzzle, the gift, if you like, it's the easy part. It's of the confidence and the self-belief, self-love, trust, you know, speaking the truth, being in the now. That's all those things people need to find as well to become whole and to find out who they are. That's
Well
sort
said.
of that's like I said, that's just how my guides have always worked with me. And I suppose what I've had to find for myself, that's what I've had to find for myself, to find my reality as well. But then that was done with the help of of connecting in with with my guides. You know, they're like a family that are there for us all the time. You know, they're there from the time we open our eyes in the morning to the time we shut them at night. They're always there for us. And when you start to accept and you take notice of signs and symbols that they're sending for us, it can be the best thing in the world, really. And
Oh, I agree. Your star family is always around you. I always say your star family is always around you with signals, and they're there for you without judgment. That's how you know you're dealing with real light forces, because there's no judgment. They're knowing, but they don't judge.
Yeah, and it's even like that in the Pleiadian Rising group. I've never seen such a high vibration group in all my life. I think it's amazing on there. The people on there are so loving. They don't judge. I say to people, you know, a friend is just a thought away on there. There will always be somebody on there that somebody can speak to if they needed to. You know, I think it's an amazing group, and the vibration on there is so high, and everybody seems to be on that same level, especially like that high frequency. You know, even like last night, I felt there was a major shift going on last night with the vibrations. It was lovely, but people, you know, like you, I'm on various groups and things, not just the Pleiadian ones, but on those different groups, everybody seemed to be posting the same posts with the same meaning, so everybody was sort of on that telepathic level, not knowing.
Yes.
And when you see that is, I find that really, really amazing, and it's just lovely to know that.
That's that bridge to telepathy. That's that bridge to telepathy. That's how it starts, you know.
Yeah, and that sort of shows that we are making a difference, and just by seeing that connection with everybody, and not you know, and those people on them different groups not knowing what other people have put on another group, shows that frequency, you know, we all interlink, and again it makes a difference to the planet. You know, we are, you know, all that love we send, all these thoughts we're doing with each other, it really does make a difference. Even like saying these awful war zones and all of that going on, people find it hard to stomach this, but obviously it's happening for a reason. It brings humanity together, which again raises the consciousness. And you know, when we see children and things like that on there, it's not nice, but it's waking again, you know, some of the government bodies up as well. You know, they can't hide these things away no more, but more than anything, it wakes humanity up. It brings the countries together. Each individual wants to try and help in some way, so like we say, we don't get angry over it. It's just send love, keep sending that vibration there, and you know, as we know, there's clearings going on at the moment because of the destruction that humanity have done to the planet up until now. So you know, it's all happening. I mean, luckily the planet's giving humans a respect still of doing it in a slow manner. you know, and clearing certain areas of the planet to activate these new portals. I know it don't sound, some people don't like to hear that, but that is what's
Well, I
happening.
do. It sounds perfectly logical to me. It
And
sounds
those
as logical as you ever
and
get.
those humans, yeah, the souls of those humans have chose to
Yeah.
incarnate, haven't they, with us at this time to bring that humanity, to the planet, to help raise that consciousness. So, like, you know, all those deaths, they're actually, you know, that they're meant to be, and that they came for that purpose, even though it's, you know, some people don't see that in that level, do they? You know, but
They don't. That might be humanity's one of the last hard tests to swallow, exactly, is being at peace with that and understanding what you're just saying right there is for a reason and for a greater good and for lessons. And that might be the hardest lesson for some people still to swallow. You
definitely.
know, it really is true, though, what you're saying. And you're talking about the synchronicity in that group, and does it seem to you that it's starting to happen more and more and more, and it's almost getting to the point where it's kind of like nonchalant? It just,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's almost par
It's
for the course
and
anymore.
and what I like about it is all the posts, they're direct, they're balanced. There's no confusion, you know. On some groups you can get posts sometimes and you can read it, and I give up reading it and I don't understand what they're talking about. You know what I mean? And you can't relate to it because it's just too complicated. But with the Pleiadian Rising group, everything is so direct. It's understandable. People can connect with it, and then again, you know, the energy that's been sent out from there is really is really good. It's really good.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, you're talking about like pictures, people posting, like one thing we don't like in the Pleiadians group is a lot of political type
Yeah,
hate messages. We don't like hate messages.
no,
We know what's going on in the world. We know there's destruction. We know there's children starving. And it's one thing to post something like that when it's out of love or for education, but
yeah,
when it's somebody of a low consciousness vibe that's just posting this like, oh, well, look at those guys, we're going to get them, it's our government versus their government. Well, no,
yeah,
it's not really, because nobody's really in control at that level. It's being
no,
the dark forces were dangling all that way levels above. And so it's, you know, it's not even ever what a post is. It's the
no.
intention and the heart behind it. You know, a lot of the
This is it, and you find that on many posts as well. This is, you can see when there's some sort of lower energy coming in because they're wanting a reaction. And when you don't give them the reaction, that then chucks it all out of sync a bit. You know, that's another lesson I learned with Facebook as well. You know, sometimes you'll do, you know, in the past, you know, you try to stand your corner and you try to, like, you know, put your point across, and you're still getting the attack. Whereas now, I very rarely post on posts, to be honest, because, like you say, it's, you know, you bear what you need to in your thought process, and then that works on a telepathic level. We don't need words again. But if I do post on a post, but normally it's my guide. If I need to post on a post, he just says, right, you need to put this. Okay, so I put that. But if there's like a, you know, a comeback reaction, I just always put that I've got nothing more to say now. I've said what I needed to say, and wish everybody all the love and light, you know, and then that breaks that chain. Whereas if you
exactly.
constantly posting, you're just feeding that lower
You're
vibration of
just
what they
feeding
want.
the energy, and I've learned that the hard way too. And what I still do, though, because I'm an admin, there are times maybe once or twice every couple of months, right, where I will still set the tone and come in there and get real harsh with somebody like that real quick. And if they come back again, I delete them. But 95% of the time, I agree with you. You just walk away, and maybe in a fluke scenario to set a quick point, to say
Yeah,
something, get rid of them. I mean, if it's something completely out of line, but the overwhelming majority of the time, you're right. It's just not even. it's
And
not
that's
even worth it. It's like almost to the point where I don't even see down on that lower vibration. I don't even see it, you know.
exactly, and actually, what I do now, which again might sound a bit harsh, but I don't even speak to them. If I see somebody, I mean, you know, like you, I would imagine I get lots of weird people try to attack me. I always have had on Facebook through messages and this,
Yes.
that, and the other. I just delete and block them straight away. I don't even give them a reply, and that's
I've been doing that
and
too.
then and you know, that would annoy them even more, to be honest. I thought, well, I'm
Yeah.
not going to reply to you because you want me to, and I'm not going to lower my energy to the vibration that you're on, you know. And so actually, that's what I do now. I just delete and block them straight away with no explanation, and they know why, you know, they know why they've
Y'all
been
know
deleted,
why.
and that's all that
And
matters, really.
did you find
But
it to be a progression with you though? You know how like maybe you used to go on and on with these people, but then you got to the point where you would block them, but you would first give, you know, you'd first banter with them a little bit before you block them. I'm getting to the point where I don't even do that. I will just, if they're that much of an issue, like you're saying, Rachel, I will just block them and get rid of them
that's it.
because
Yeah,
you realize
yeah,
at that point it's lost. You
yeah,
realize that you get to that point where, and I don't feel guilty anymore, like, oh, well, I should have tried to explain it to him. Well, in one hand, no, I don't feel guilty because in the reality, and this may sound harsh, you know, we're here on a mission, and we really don't have time to screw around
that's
with
right.
something like that.
And again, and even if you did explain to them, they're not their ears aren't open to listen anyway, because they're there to just cause a distraction and
Their
reload our
consciousness,
energy. So like you
they're
say,
not there yet.
no, no. Um, yeah, that's that. I mean, that, like I said, I've not always been like that. When I first went on Facebook a couple of years ago, you know, I used, especially in the group, you know, I'd have this person or people come in and start to attack a post and say this, that, and the other. But then, you know, you realise then that it's just a waste of energy, but we always learn the hard way.
Yeah,
Always learn
yeah, and you got
the
to
hard
ask
way
you
initially.
got to ask yourself. We do, and you got to ask yourself, like even this scenario. Let's say that you posted something really fucking crazy and it was totally wrong, and they come in there and come at you like that. Well, who cares what you posted? What is their motive for doing that? I
Yeah,
mean, and you can always tell they may offer another perspective in a loving way, and that's one thing, but you can tell when it's getting a reaction out of you, because you could come right back around and basically like flip a 180 and agree with even what they're saying, and they'll still argue and want to fight
yeah,
with you about it.
yeah.
They're
And a
looking
lot,
for a reaction, period,
yeah.
point blank.
Yeah, and a lot of it as well, which again might sound a bit blunt, is jealousy. Even amongst, you know, normal sites, you know, some people can, you know, that people can get really jealous, which is again part of our reality, and
Right.
that can be hard. That can be hard, you know, and sometimes it can come from people you would least expect, like all of a sudden, you know, and again, we encounter that with friends and various things. In actual fact, you know, I think I
Family.
don't mean to say this disrespectfully, but when we're on this frequency, we have actually got little friends because, you know, what I would call real friends, because
Very true.
they just you know, there can be a lot of jealousy, so that can be hard as well, and can be hurtful if we allow it to be. But again, I don't. I think now, as we're on that different frequency, we're not on the 3D when we learn a lot quicker, we detach from it a lot quicker, and we don't let it remain in our consciousness. It's gone. Yesterday's gone. It's not. You know, it's irrelevant. We only go back into the past, I say, to help another, and that's the only reason I go back into any of my past. If I knew an experience would help somebody else find their strength, then I'll bring it up. But apart from that, you know, it's got no relevance on our pathway, is it really?
It's kind of nice to get at peace like that. Like you say, you just get rid of them and be done with it. And it's kind of like at peace like that. And then I think the next step is you get to a point where, you know, you don't even see it. I mean, you don't even see that negativity. You know what I mean? I mean, you
Yeah,
see it, but you don't. Somebody comes back with a shitty comment, and you're just like, okay, or whatever, you block them. Or if they just had one little thing to say and that was it, well, you don't even pay attention to it. You know what I mean?
yeah, and like you say, in that split second, it's gone. It is forgotten about. That's the good thing about it. Whereas you know, people will dwell on things again, you know, in life, won't they? And I say, well, you've let that situation, you know, upset you for your whole life up until now. You know, you're really going to let it upset you for the rest of your life. You just need to forgive that situation and move on. I mean, and by forgiving, you haven't got to accept it, you haven't got to accept that situation, but you need to forgive it away from your being, so it doesn't eat away at you no longer than what it has done up until that point. Because it just becomes like a cancer in a way, doesn't it? And some things eat away at people their whole life, and you think, well, you know, you don't want to. And it's never. And I always say it's never too late, neither, to learn and to evolve, no matter what age you are. You know, some people I've seen. When I say elderly people, you know, I've seen a lot of older people that are still, you know, being affected by their childhood, their whole life, you know, and it's so sad. And again, to be able to bring somebody into reality, into the now, when you know, when they've been through that their whole life, and you know, by working with them, they've been able to release that situation from them. Again, that is, you know, it's so rewarding. I'm
Very
always
rewarding.
I'm always so grateful. I'm grateful every day. I feel blessed every day for my job and for all my experiences. You know, you know, we must never take nothing for granted. It's just an amazing experience to be able to help people and set them free. You know, you know, we've set ourselves free along the way, so we're able to, you know, and to set other people free within.
I get more joy out of seeing them have that aha moment than even I do anymore. When you know, like in your work you do, when you know you've really made a breakthrough for somebody, isn't it just rewarding? Like you can't even describe.
Yeah, and again, this is where egos can come in, can it? You know, people can get quite sort of up themselves with what we do, but you know, I just find it part of my reality. You know,
Yeah.
like my friend with epilepsy, bless her, she's had it for like 30 odd years, and she used to have like seizures every day. And we've done Reiki, we've done the workshops and that. When I say we, I cannot, so that's me and my guide, and you know, and she, you know, she's gone through a healing, and it is just so amazing. It really is. And she said, so if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I am. I said, no, it's not me, it's you. You've brought yourself out of that place. You know, you've followed the guidance from the universe, and you've done what you've needed to do, because at the end of the day, it's the people that have made the difference, not us. You know, we're just a channel. That's all we are. And then that helps to bring balance, I think, then within our work. And when it just comes our everyday, you know, purpose, you know, we don't need to be rewarded for that. It's just
It's who we
amazing.
are.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience to be able to deliver that to another, let alone needing to be rewarded for it, you know. And then but this is where people then, like I say, their egos interfere, and then again it all becomes unbalanced, doesn't it? You know.
It sure does. You mentioned your friend that, you know, with the epilepsy. Now imagine 20 or 30 years ago trying to help heal her in the way you are. I mean, you would have almost probably been burned at the stake. But
Yeah.
now we're starting to realize that we're these all-powerful beings, and it's almost, you can see it. I mean, I see a day where this is mainstream, that this is just, we can heal like.
But then
You know?
with the lady with the epilepsy, you see, she's had to experience that up until now to get a healing from it, to then again help another. She's now done Reiki, so she's able to do healing for people. So the universe will now send her other, well, I say victims, epilepsy victims, and you know, she has become a survivor. And I say, you don't own a disease. You don't say my epilepsy. You don't say my cancer. You say, you know, you say the epilepsy or the cancer, you know, because the minute you say my, you're owning it. You want to possess it. So it's good to release it that way. But again, it's like, you know, I recently seen a young girl, again going back to the mental health, and she was getting she was only 16, getting voices in her head. She was self-harming. She was going to get put on psychotic drugs and everything. It was just awful. And that all related back to bullying in school. And again, you know, she came and see me a week before she was due to go to the psychiatrist and everything. And she'd done her aura. That was the first thing I said to her, because I could relate that the voices she was hearing, the things she was seeing, was again the darkness that I saw in 2008. Because her vibration was so low from her bullying, this is what was happening to her. So the first thing she would need to do would be her aura protection. She would need to, like, you know, protect herself, which she done. And I, even though she was only 16, she was an evolved 16, you know, and we done the Reiki with her. And I know that she'll use that later in life, and she'll help others, you know, that other victims to become survivors like they have. So I think with a lot of illnesses, especially mental health ones, or anything to do with the brain, is definitely aura. It's aura connected and energy connected, and you know, it should be brought in more into the mental health.
It should be,
you know, institutions, and that it should be accepted, because there would be, you know, it would be a breakthrough on that, especially with children. You know, that's our main aim. We need to be working with the children that are going through difficulties, to prevent them from you know, living their whole lives with these issues like we've had to, or like, you know, some of us have. So if we can catch it earlier in life, and that's again part of what we're doing with the consciousness of the planet. You know, these alternative therapies hopefully will be accepted more in the authorities, and you know, you know, we work alongside each other. That makes a big difference as well, especially, like I say, especially with the children more than anything else, really. You know, but again, they're encountering that for a reason. They're the souls. They're that special wave, you know, that have come in to encounter these experiences again, to bring it forth. In the, you know, in the, well, we can't say future generation because we don't do future, but do you know what I mean?
I do exactly know what you mean.
Yeah, the frequency that we're on, you know. So yeah, I think, you know, that's really important.
It's energy, all energy. Like you were talking about these mental health conditions. It's all energy based and manipulated. Like that. They can't go within the body to find. I mean, what you're saying is completely true. It's perfect, and it's so logical to me that I don't know how in the hell that everybody doesn't get it. But it's, of course, then again, it's a consciousness thing, and something we're all having to go through to awaken as a whole collective. I guess.
I mean, Earth is known as a classroom anyway, isn't it? And we're in one big classroom. Yes. We're all on different vibrations, and we're here to learn lessons. And people will continue to still come and learn lessons, and we're here in this time now to help them. You know, to pass their lessons so they can go home free. They don't have to come back again to learn. They come back to, well, not necessarily teach, but they come back to do what we're doing, you know, and from surviving their lessons. So that's always going to be that balance within the Earth. But the difference being, you know, up until 2008 and what we're in now is that lower energy become unbalanced. There was too much of it. It become greedy. You know, there was no. It became ego, and humans misinterpreted the meaning of life. Or misinterpreted the human experience then on planet Earth. So that's where what we're all working on now, aren't we? We're trying to bring that balance back in. So yeah, we can still learn on Earth, but it's in a balanced way, not like it has been previous.
Not like in chaos mode. We're becoming more responsive instead of reactive, I think. And
Mm.
I think it's exciting. And, as far as your guides go, it sounds like with me, we just deal in the now moment and innate possibilities, if anything, for the future. People will talk about, well, what do your guides have to say about humanity's future and what's coming down the pike? Well, it's not really like that with mine. The Pleiadians deal in innate possibilities, if anything, but they're basically now moment centered, because like with yours, they don't exist in 3D time because it's an
Yeah.
illusion. So I just feel that we're moving in the right direction, and we change this every day, and we have
Yeah.
the influence to affect that. So I'm not even going to waste the time to ask you, oh, well, what do your guides say about the future? How's it look?
Well,
Well,
I think
my
that
guides would put that right back on me and say, well, how's it look?
yeah, I think that now vibration, that code, that one word now, living in the now, that code, that one word, was brought forth in 2008 again with the 13th skull generator, and that skull will continue to bring codes through for us in the future, which is our now. That now, I saw some posts recently, something about, oh, this will all be done in the future. I said, well, the future's been here since 2008. That activation is the now. That this is our future. We're in it now, and we're creating that every day in the now. And that's one of the jobs that people, it's their mind. Their mind is the killer. The minute they switch that switch off in their mind, that's it. They've survived. If you're in the now, you don't let your mind take you back to nothing. You just sit in that moment. You're at peace. And the
It's
more,
zero time. We're in
yeah,
zero time now. And a lot of the greats, like this guy Terrence McKenna that I used to love, he talked about between 2008 12 going into this zero time. And it's the now moment, basically, because there is zero
yeah.
time. You're just in the now.
That's it. Yeah, you don't create nothing, and this is why it's quite, well, I wouldn't say daunting. That's a bit of a harsh word, but when we do the job we do, I do not know from one day to the next what I'm going to be doing, what's going to be happening, because I don't create nothing. I mean, yeah, we got to have sort of a structure for workshops, dates, that sort of thing,
Right.
but again, yeah, I put that in place, but it's not in stone. If it's not meant to be, it won't be. But we just know that being in the now, we just exist. We're just here. There's no creation, so to speak. We don't. We're just empty. We're just an empty space. We're just an empty space,
Exactly.
and we just, we feel that throughout the day as we go along, as it's needed to for that time. But then it's not really throughout the day, is it? Because again, it's in the now. It's everything
Yeah.
is done in the moment, and it's just, the more people that can stay in that moment, that's when there's a breakthrough, isn't there?
When we stay in that now moment and don't future trip, because there is no future, but don't sit there and think, what am I going to have for dinner? What am I going to do when I get up? What am I going to watch on TV? I mean, you get out of that mindset and you deal in direct consciousness
Mm.
with the moment that you're in. And like you said, of course you still have, and they're not set in stone, workshop dates or whatever, but that's really probably about the last kind of structure there really even is at that. I mean, everything is just becoming more and more quick, not quicker, but the now moments,
Yeah.
it's just becoming quicker and quicker, more of a constant now moment.
Well, this, and like we were saying, the frequency is raising all the time, every second.
Oh boy.
It's changing all the time. So that's why we can't be set in a way no more. I mean, we used to be, up until 2008, and that's why the planet got in such a bloody mess in the first place. That's why everything happened in 2008, to all these new grids and everything had to be laid and had to be activated. So we realise now that it's all about trust, isn't it? It's about totally trusting in divine intervention. It's trusting in the universal energies, knowing that all is well. All is well, and that's all we need to do. We don't need to worry about bills. We don't need to be worrying if we can afford to pay this or do that, because we trust that it'll be all right. Everything will be all right. And if we worry, we put a block there for what could be coming through for us. So if we don't have no blocks there, we can be open to whatever we need to receive and fulfill, really, until it's time for us to go home, isn't it, really?
Exactly. 2008 was so pivotal now that I'm thinking back on it, because back then I was stuck into my political thing, and I hated the fact 9/11 happened. I hated George W. Bush, and I really thought, oh God, it couldn't get any worse. And then 2008, I saw a little bit of a turn, and I wasn't even awakened yet, but I remember seeing that I could finally begin to see the river through the woods again, so to speak, you know? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we started to get out of this big, bad, dark era we'd been under for about 10 years, well, forever, really, but it got to it could have got to a really bad boiling point if we didn't turn it around, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean that phrase, like the river in the woods, is very relevant actually, because that's a bit like how the Reiki works with the healing. They say, you know, the universal life force that comes through us, and we do healing on ourselves or another, is, you know, like the flow of a river. And when you've got the stones or the rocks in the river, that's like our blockages within our being. And when we give ourselves that healing energy, though, you know, those obstacles, those blocks, those rocks will remove. So we're like a flowing stream, we're like a flowing body, just allowing that energy to come through. So that's why I feel Reiki is really important, especially the first one, because, you know, once you're attuned, you know, into that universal life force energy, I mean, we've all got a certain amount of it anyway, but obviously when you do Reiki, you're fully attuned to that, to be able to heal yourself and work on your own being in a different way, you know. And again, that is a massive transition in itself, just by doing Reiki 1, because you release a lot of stuff from your incarnations. It's just gone. And then obviously with Reiki 2, that's if you want to practice it and you know, do it as a living, and then you get the further attunements. But I think Reiki 1 is quite important to people, especially now, because, you know, whereas before a lot of the you know, the energy used to come through the universe, would come through as heat through people's hands. Well, my master and I noticed from 2012, when the planet ascended, that the energy was coming through as cold. And a lot of people thought, well, they thought it was going away. But what it was is because so many people are so angry, and that they've got so many ailments going on with them, which produces heat. If we, you know, that sort of like temperature, if we was to give them healing and put extra heat into that being, it would just be unbearable. So this cold energy was coming through to steam, like a form of a steam, really, to release that heat, to release that negative energy as a cooling off, like a system. And then we would then recharge that area, that chakra point, with the new energy, which again would be the heat then, to activate that center point on the being. So, you know, I think it's quite important as well, for people to whether they're spiritual, whether they're not, because it's, again, that's not necessarily connected. It's about that energy that's available for us through our human experience, where we can use that energy to help us with our everyday existence, you know, and to help release things that have, you know, that are making them stay victims. That can be released by doing Reiki. You know, it's not just all on a physical form, it's on all the levels, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I've had some really loving people send me Reiki, and I think, like, you can send that energy to people, like a few special people that you know that could really use it and that would handle it well. And, you know, at first I thought, okay, yeah, send me some Reiki, whatever. But I'll tell you what, it really, I mean, it's amazing.
Mm, mm.
Even having
Again,
somebody
that's
take
that
care of
sort
what
of,
you send it to.
Yeah, that's changed as well, actually, because again, up until 2008, you would have to go through the whole well, people still do. We still do it. You go through the whole procedure to send distance healing, but actually, from 2012, it is just done within a second. The minute you think, again on a telepathic level, you know, that thought is just sent. But we still go through the procedure really as respect to the origins. I think. Well, that's what me and my master feel. The origins of how Reiki was introduced to the planet in the first place, but with the shift in the planet in 2012 and the frequencies now that we work on, it is just literally a thought, and that energy is sent to that person. It's the same really given a treatment, you know, that the areas are worked on so much quicker, but you still continue that treatment, or you may go back on certain areas to just, you know, give that person the time that they need to, you know, be in the zone and to relax. And but actually you would have done the work that needed to have been done a lot quicker than what it was, you know, before the ascension, you know. So it's lots of things, but again, but it's changing all the time. Like I say, everything's changed all the time, and we just go with that flow. We go with that download and work with it the best way we can.
Get into a pure consciousness flow, you know, that's what it's about. That's how the universe works, and I'm down with that. It's an exciting time we're living in. Well, Rachel, we've been on the air about 2 hours now. Is there any last thing that you'd like to cover or talk about before we wrap up the show?
Oh no, I don't think so. I'd just like to I'd like to just thank everybody really that's supported me along my journey, and you know, the people that I've seen, and again, I'd like to thank you, and you know, and for the sites, because it really is needed, and the vibration is just amazing, and we're needing that at that time. We need to be knowing that we've got people there we can call upon when we need to. And again, for everybody to just, you know, to be in the now and really try to raise their vibration and take something from what we're trying to bring forth on the planet, because it really does make a difference. It's life-changing, isn't it? You know, and just to send love and light to everybody really into the world.
Well, why don't you tell everybody though, before we go, why don't you tell everybody where they could, the name of your book again, and where they could find it or contact you if they're interested?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, my website's actually been updated at the moment, so that's not available. But it can be. It's on Amazon, and it's also on Author House, which is the main publishers. I can also send the book direct. I have sent a few around the world, but it's all obviously depending where people are, because the postage can be quite. You know, it's easier for them to get it on Amazon sometimes. And on Facebook, I'm on Facebook. My business page is Universal Angel Star, so people can always contact me that way as well. And I'm generally in the groups, you know, now and then as well. So yeah, I'm always.
And oddly enough, that's the name of your book too, Universal Angel Star.
Yeah, well, that's why it's called that, because that's the name. Yeah, that's the shit. Yeah.
That was a dense 3D moment for me. It's like, duh. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for my copy that you sent all the way from Wales here to the United States. I got it in the mail one day, and I knew it was coming, but I saw this funky postage on there, and I'm like, oh, well, that's it.
Oh, bless. I thank you for the opportunity. That I really do. You know, it's good to be able to, you know, reach as many people as we can. Really, you know, that's our job, isn't it? So I thank you for that.
Absolutely. Rachel Moore, thank you so much. And like she said, everybody, you can find her on Facebook, Universal Angel Star. You can find her in most of the groups. Anybody listening to this message, this conversation tonight, well, you're probably in a lot of groups with her. So I would encourage you to check her out. And if you have any questions, hit her up, but be nice about it. And I guess that's it, and we're going to go ahead and sign off for the night. Of course, this is yours truly, Rocken Larry Locken, and I don't need to get into the spill. You know where to find me on Facebook. I'm the bald guy with the rainbow glow, and I just want to thank you again so much, Rachel,
Thank you,
for
Larry.
talking with me. And I know that it's we don't live in time. I understand that, but in your neck of the woods, so to speak, it's probably getting to be about 2 a.m.
Yeah.
But who cares? What's time but a number?
But yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
All right, much love to you, sweetie, and thank you
And
so much. And namaste and infinite love and light. And this is Larry Locken for Pleiadian Express Productions signing off.